Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something really exciting, getting started with your own garden.
Hmm.
Now, if your past gardening adventures have maybe ended up being more of a slug buffet than a bountiful harvest, you're definitely in the right place.
Oh,
We've all been there.
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That initial enthusiasm is fantastic, but sometimes the know-how needs a little boost, you
All
know?
right.
And that's exactly what we're aiming for today, to provide some um, focused information that can really make a difference for beginner gardeners.
Exactly. We've gathered a fantastic array of tips, all centered around organic and sustainable practices. Really perfect for those just starting out.
Yeah.
Think about it. Healthier plants, tastier things to eat, a little nod of appreciation from the planet, and, let's be honest, saving some money by saying goodbye to those pricey fertilizers.
And that's a big one.
Yeah.
And if the word organic makes it sound like super complicated, like you need a PhD in botany,
Right.
let's put that thought to rest. It's not necessarily harder. In fact, as our sources highlight, it's often just a smarter way to work with nature, not against it.
Working with nature, I like that.
Yeah, it's about
Well,
understanding the natural systems already playing out in your backyard, basically.
precisely. And our philosophy for beginners is definitely start small. Celebrate those early wins.
Hmm.
Imagine the satisfaction of, snipping fresh mint from a little pot on your windowsill. Total beginner victory.
That's the best feeling.
So we'll be exploring the simplicity of container gardening and helping you steer clear of those common rookie mistakes, like planting sunlovers in shade or
Or putting plants together that just don't get along.
garden frenemies,
Exactly.
which leads us nicely into what we're actually going to explore in this deep dive.
Okay.
We'll be looking at understanding the unique environment of your garden specifically, then planning a layout that's sustainable and easy to manage.
Makes sense.
Building healthy soil, using organic methods, super important. Techniques for water-wise gardening.
How to handle pests and diseases the natural way, the rhythm of seasonal maintenance, and yeah, those common missteps beginners can hopefully easily avoid.
Our goal here is simple. Help you grow your confidence, maybe one seed at a time. So for someone just itching to get their hands dirty, where should they even begin with this whole green adventure?
Well, the very, very first thing, even before you pick out your first packet of seeds, is to really get to know your garden space.
Okay.
It's almost like matchmaking for your plants. You need to match them with an environment where they'll actually thrive. Think about the conditions your garden offers naturally.
Okay, let's dig into that then. Step one, you mentioned sunlight and soil. Now, sunlight seems pretty straightforward. Plants need sun, right? But it's more nuanced than that.
It really is. That's right.
Yeah.
Not all plants are, total sunbathers. We talk about full sun, which means at least 6 hours of direct sunlight each day.
6 hours plus.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Things like tomatoes, peppers, they absolutely love that. Then there's partial shade, maybe 3 to 6 hours of sun,
Yeah.
often ideal for leafy greens like lettuce. Lots of herbs, too.
Okay. Lettuce, herbs, partial shade.
And finally, full shade, meaning less than 3 hours of direct sun. That's where you'll find plants like hostas, ferns, things that prefer it dimmer. They'll be really happy there.
Right. And one of our sources had that great analogy. Planting a shade-loving fern in full sun is like sending a vampire to the beach.
Huh. Exactly. It really paints a picture, doesn't it?
It definitely sticks in your mind. So, okay, first, know your light. What about the ground beneath our feet? Soil. It's more than just dirt, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Soil is actually this bustling, living ecosystem. It's amazing. And understanding its pH level, whether it's acidic or alkaline, is really important for beginners.
Okay, pH. How do you figure that out easily?
Well, you can get a pretty inexpensive pH test kit, maybe $10 or so.
Right.
Or there's even a simple DIY method using vinegar and baking soda, give you a general sense.
Vinegar and baking soda. Okay, I'm curious. How does that work?
It's pretty simple, actually.
Yeah.
You take a small sample of your soil. If it fizzes when you add a bit of vinegar, it's likely on the alkaline side.
Okay.
If it doesn't react, try adding a little baking soda mixed with water to a fresh sample. If that fizzes, your soil is probably acidic.
Huh.
It's not super precise like a lab test, but it points you in the right direction. And knowing this helps you choose plants that will actually do well. Like blueberries love acidic soil,
Right.
while something like asparagus prefers it more alkaline.
That's a really useful quick hack for beginners. Okay, so we've assessed the sunlight, gotten a basic idea of our soil pH. What's next for understanding our garden's environment?
Climate. That's the next crucial piece of the
Okay.
puzzle. Your local climate, your growing zone, really dictates what you can successfully grow and when.
Yeah.
Someone in, say, Florida is going to have very different options than someone in maybe Minnesota.
Absolutely. One of our resources mentioned a what to plant in March guide, highlighting those tough plants like kale and peas that can handle cooler temps, even a bit of frost.
Exactly. So it's not just about what you want to grow, but what your local conditions will actually support.
Right.
And one of the resources we looked at had this really helpful quick reference table. Fantastic for beginners.
Oh, yeah. What did it cover?
It laid out the ideal sunlight and soil for popular starter plants, like tomatoes, full sun, slightly acidic soil, basil, full sun, well-drained, neutral soil, lettuce, partial shade, rich, moist soil,
Mm-hmm.
lavender, full sun, sandy, alkaline soil.
That's great. It really takes some guesswork out.
It does. It's like a cheat sheet for plant preferences.
And I saw something about frost dates being important. A pro tip, I think.
Oh, absolutely vital. Planting tender things too early, before that last spring frost hits.
Yeah?
Well, it can just wipe out your young seedlings.
Devastating.
It really can be. So our source suggests finding out your area's typical last spring frost date. Let's say it's April 15th, for example. Mark it on your calendar. It's a simple reminder, but one beginners often miss.
Good tip. Like a don't plant before the state line.
Exactly. There was also a mention of a lazy gardener's guide that talks about syncing your planting with these natural seasonal cues, kind of working with the calendar.
So basically, understanding your garden's sunlight, soil, and climate. It's like doing your homework before the test.
Precisely.
You're setting yourself up for success and avoiding a lot of potential headaches down the line.
Exactly. One source compared it to preheating your oven before baking. You might get something edible if you skip it, but
Huh. Probably not ideal.
right, taking that initial step really ups your chances of a great result. Tailoring your organic garden setup to these basics helps avoid so many common beginner problems.
Okay, so we've got a good sense of our garden's personality, its conditions. Now, what about planning where everything actually goes? My first instinct is always, I want one of everything.
That initial burst of enthusiasm is wonderful, but as our resources wisely point out, a bit of overambition can be a real challenge for beginners.
Yeah, I could see that.
The story we found about a balcony turning into this unmanageable jungle of seedlings,
Oh, dear.
it really illustrates the point. The key takeaway is start small. Seriously, a thriving small space is much more satisfying and a better learning curve than a huge, struggling garden.
That makes total sense. Less daunting, too, probably. So start small. What are some good ways for beginners to actually do that, layout-wise?
For beginners, especially those leaning towards organic methods, containers and raised beds are fantastic choices.
Okay.
They're just much easier to manage, they help keep weeds down a big plus, and they give you complete control over the soil quality. Our sources really highlighted these.
Containers and raised beds. Okay, tell me more. Advantages of each for someone starting out.
Well, with containers, the big win is flexibility. You can grow herbs like basil or mint right on a sunny windowsill, fresh flavor right there.
Terrific.
And one source even suggested using fabric pots. They apparently allow for better airflow around the roots. A great little tip for container health.
Fabric pots, interesting. And raised beds, they look a bit more permanent.
They take a little more initial effort to set up, maybe, but the benefits are huge for beginners. They lift your plants up away from potentially poor or compacted native soil,
Right.
and they can act as a bit of a barrier against some ground-level pests, too, like slugs or snails. Plus, one resource had a great tip. Line the bottom with cardboard before you fill it.
Cardboard, why?
To suppress weeds. It blocks them from growing up from the ground below into your lovely new bed. Simple, but effective.
Oh, that's clever. I like that. And what about the soil in these containers and beds?
That's where you have real control. For containers, a good quality potting mix is usually recommended. Easy.
Okay.
For raised beds, a common reliable mix is often suggested. Good compost, some peat moss, or maybe coco coir for water retention, and then vermiculite or perlite for drainage and aeration.
Got it. Compost, peat coir, vermiculite, perlite.
Or there's an even simpler approach called the no-dig gardening method.
No dig. Tell me more.
It basically involves layering organic materials like cardboard, compost, straw right on top of the ground. You build the soil up instead of digging down. Really easy, great for soil structure over time.
Okay, so we've got ways to keep it manageable: containers, raised beds, maybe no dig. Now, I saw something in the resources called companion planting. It sounds like plants can actually help each other.
Exactly. Companion planting is all about harnessing these beneficial relationships between different plants. It's fascinating.
How does it work?
Well, Certain pairings can boost each other's growth, some plants can help deter pests naturally, and it can even save space. It's like nature's own little social network.
Give me some examples. I'm picturing little plant friendships now.
Huh. Well, think tomatoes and basil.
Yeah,
Classic in the kitchen,
maybe
right?
best.
Also great in the garden. Basil is said to help repel tomato hornworms, those big green caterpillars. Or carrots and onions. The strong onion smell can apparently confuse the carrot root fly.
That's so cool. Like they're looking out for each other. Are there any bad pairings? Plant frenemies beginners should avoid.
Yes, definitely. Just like good neighbors, some plants just don't mix well. For example, some sources say planting beans near onions or garlic can actually stunt the beans' growth.
Oh,
So it's
interesting.
worth a quick check before you plant things side by side. Avoid those gardy feuds.
Noted. No plant drama. What other design tips did our resources offer for making a small garden really efficient for beginners?
Thinking vertically is huge. Vertical gardening. Using trellises or supports for climbing plants like cucumbers, pole beans, even some types of squash. It lets you grow upwards, maximizing a small footprint.
Smart. Go up, not just out.
Exactly. And creating pollinator corners.
Mm-hmm.
Dedicating even a small sunny spot to flowers that bees and butterflies love, things like lavender, sunflowers, borage.
Helping the bees.
Yes, it adds beauty,
Yeah.
and it supports pollination, which is crucial for getting fruits from many plants like tomatoes, peppers, squash.
Love the pollinator corner idea. A little welcome station.
Totally. And finally, even just a simple sketch of your garden layout can be incredibly helpful.
Like a little map.
Yeah, just a rough doodle. Visualizing how much space each plant actually needs when it's full grown helps prevent that overcrowding we talked about. There are even online garden planner tools if you want to get more detailed.
Okay, so a thoughtful layout. Start small, use containers or beds, maybe try companion planting, grow vertically, attract pollinators. It all adds up.
It really does. It makes the garden easier to manage and helps it thrive by working with natural systems. A well-planned layout saves time, water, effort. All good things.
Okay, we've got the environment sussed, the layout planned. Now let's get down to the nitty-gritty, the soil itself. One source called Healthy Soil, your garden's secret superpower. That sounds pretty vital for beginners.
It absolutely is. Foundational, really. I love the description. Living buffet for your plants.
Right.
If you provide that rich, balanced diet through healthy soil, your plants will be stronger, more resistant to pests and diseases, and just more productive overall. It's the base for everything else.
So how do we build this amazing living buffet organically? Our resources talked a lot about composting.
Composting, yes. It's truly a game changer for organic gardeners and honestly a fantastic habit for beginners to start right away.
Okay.
You're essentially transforming kitchen scraps, yard trimming stuff you might otherwise throw out into this incredibly nutrient-rich black gold for your garden.
Garden gold, I like it. Recycling for plants.
Exactly.
But for someone who's never done it, composting can seem, I don't know, complicated, maybe smelly.
It can seem that way,
Hmm.
but the basics are surprisingly simple. The key is balancing greens and browns.
Greens and browns.
Yeah. Greens are things rich in nitrogen like your fruit and veg scraps, coffee grounds, grass clippings. Browns are rich in carbon, think dry leaves, cardboard, straw, twigs.
Okay, greens and browns. Layer them up.
You got it. You layer them in a bin or pile, keep it slightly damp like a wrung-out sponge, and make sure it gets some air. Turning the pile occasionally speeds things up. Or you can even use worms, vermicomposting, which is another great method.
Worms. Okay. How long does it take?
It usually takes a few months, maybe 3 to 6, depending on the conditions, for everything to break down into that lovely, dark, crumbly compost.
A few months. That takes some patience. Is there a quicker way for beginners to get nutrients in the soil?
Well, one resource mentioned trench composting as a really easy, sort of lazy gardener's option.
Trench composting.
Yeah, you just dig a small trench or hole directly in your garden bed, bury your kitchen scraps, uncooked veggie stuff, coffee grounds, eggshells, and cover them back up.
Straight into the garden.
Yep. As they decompose, the nutrients go right into the soil where your plants can use them. Less formal than a bin. Great way to start.
That sounds much more immediate. Any quick tips for boosting compost, even in the trench method?
Definitely. Crushed eggshells add valuable calcium. Coffee grounds add nitrogen and a bit of acidity, which some plants like tomatoes and blueberries really appreciate. It's amazing what household waste can do.
So composting is key. What about mulching? That came up too. Sounds like more than just making the garden look tidy.
Oh, mulch is a true workhorse in the organic garden. Especially beneficial for beginners because it solves several problems at once.
How so?
A layer of organic mulch maybe 2 or 3 inches deep, spread around your plants, does a few things. First, it locks in soil moisture, so you water less often. Huge benefit.
Less watering. Nice.
Second, it suppresses weeds brilliantly, saves so much time and backache. And third, as that organic mulch slowly breaks down, it feeds the soil, adding organic matter.
Wow, a triple threat. Moisture, weeds, soil food. What are some good organic mulches beginners could easily find or use?
Straw is great lightweight, good for veggie beds, keeps berries clean. Grass clippings, you don't treat your lawn with chemicals, decompose quickly, and add nitrogen good around flowers. Wood chips last longer, improve soil structure over time, great for paths or around trees and shrubs.
Okay. Straw, grass clippings, wood chips, anything to avoid.
You generally avoid those brightly dyed wood chip mulches. They can sometimes contain unwanted chemicals. Stick to natural, undyed materials for an organic garden.
Good to know. So, compost and mulch are the big soil builders. What about organic amendments? When might a beginner need those?
Sometimes, even with compost and mulch, your soil might need a little extra boost, especially if plants seem sluggish. That's where amendments come in.
Like what?
Things like worm castings, basically worm manures, are amazing. Super rich in microbes, great for pots or giving individual plants a feed. Fish emulsion is another one, bit smelly, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
but it gives a good nitrogen boost, great for leafy greens. And biochar, which is a special kind of charcoal, can really improve water retention long term.
Okay, so targeted boosters. And the big no-no for organic beginners is synthetic fertilizers, right? The junk food for plants.
That's a perfect analogy. Synthetics give a quick hit of nutrients, but they don't build the soil's long-term health, its structure, its microbial life. Focusing on organic matter compost, mulch creates a self-sustaining ecosystem.
Makes sense. Nurture the soil, and the soil nurtures the plants.
Exactly. Plus that EPA stat about composting diverting 30% of household waste, that's a significant environmental benefit too.
Okay, healthy soil foundation laid. Let's talk about keeping those plants happy and hydrated. Water-wise gardening. I know I'm guilty of sometimes. Well, maybe loving my plants a bit too much with the watering can.
You're definitely not alone. That story about the drowned zucchini, classic beginner mistake. More water isn't always better.
Right.
Water-wise gardening is about efficiency, getting the right amount of water to the right place, the roots without waste.
So what are some efficient techniques for beginners?
Drip irrigation and soaker hoses are fantastic. Drip systems use tubes and emitters to deliver water slowly, right at the soil level, directly to the roots. Cuts down waste hugely, maybe up to 60% compared to sprinklers.
60%?
Soaker hoses are simpler, often cheaper. They're porous hoses that weep water along their length right into the soil. Great for garden beds.
Drip sounds maybe a bit complex for a total newbie. Are soaker hoses easier to start with?
Absolutely. Soaker hoses are very user-friendly. Less initial setup, perfect for smaller beds or rows. A great entry point to efficient watering.
Okay. What about collecting rainwater? That seems like the ultimate water-wise strategy.
It really is. Setting up a rain barrel under a downspout to collect runoff from your roof. It's free, natural, soft water that plants love.
Nice.
One source mentioned using rainwater specifically for acid-loving plants like blueberries. And there was that clever hack for apartment dwellers, using a collectible rain barrel on a balcony.
Collapsible. That's smart. You don't need a huge yard.
Exactly. Every bit helps. That resource table comparing methods was interesting too.
Yeah, what did it highlight?
It showed even one rain barrel can capture thousands of gallons a year. Great for small spaces. Drip irrigation for its big water savings. Good for veggies and trees. And then
Ollala. O-L-L-A.
Yep.
Yeah.
Unglazed clay pots that you bury in the soil near your plants and fill with water. The water slowly seeps out through the porous clay right into the root zone. Super efficient, especially in dry climates. Maybe 70% efficiency.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay, beyond the gear, what about smart watering habits for beginners?
Timing is key. Watering early in the morning is usually best.
Why morning?
Less evaporation from the sun, and it lets the plant leaves dry out during the day, which helps prevent fungal diseases that love damp conditions overnight.
We dance.
And the most important habit, check the soil before you water. Don't just water on a schedule. Stick your finger in about 2 inches deep. If it feels dry, water. If it's damp, wait.
The finger test. Simple but effective.
It really is. And remember mulch. That layer helps keep the soil moist for longer, reducing how often you need to water by maybe 30%.
Right, mulch does everything. Okay, morning watering, finger test, mulch. Any big watering mistakes to avoid?
Definitely avoid watering overhead, especially late in the day or evening. Wet leaves sitting overnight are an invitation for mildew and fungus.
Got it. Aim for the base.
Exactly. Water the soil around the base of the plant where the roots are. That's where the plant actually takes up the water. Spraying the leaves doesn't do much good.
Okay, that all makes perfect sense. Efficient, targeted watering. Now, the perhaps less fun part. Uninvited guests. Pests. Our resources cover natural pest and disease management. This feels like a big hurdle for beginners.
It absolutely can feel that way. Seeing your precious plants getting munched on or looking sick, it's frustrating.
Understatement.
But organic pest control isn't about waging war. It's more about creating a healthy, balanced garden ecosystem where pests are less likely to get out of control and encouraging natural predators to do some of the work for you.
Ah, attract beneficial insects, like hiring nature's little helpers.
Exactly. Think ladybugs, lacewings, hoverflies, parasitic wasps. These guys are predators that naturally feed on common garden pests like aphids, mites, caterpillars.
Okay, so who are these good bugs and how do we invite them?
Ladybugs are famous aphid eaters. Lacewing larvae are voracious predators too. However, larvae love aphids. To attract them, plant a variety of flowers that provide nectar and pollen.
What kind of flowers?
Things with small flowers often work well. Dill, fennel, parsley, cilantro if you let them flower. Also alyssum, yarrow, sunflowers, calendula. A diverse pollinator buffet helps.
Pollinator buffet, I like that.
You can also build simple insect hotels, little structures made from bamboo canes, drilled logs, pine cones to provide shelter and nesting sites.
Insect hotels. That sounds like a fun project. That resource table on bug allies and their prey was helpful too. Key pairings.
Well, ladybugs for aphids mites attract with dill. Calendula, praying mantis eat bigger stuff like caterpillars. They like tall grasses, cosmos. Hoverflies for thrips. Mealybugs attract with alyssum, parsley. Creating that diverse habitat is key.
Okay, so invite the good guys. But what if pests still show up? Our resources mention some DIY organic sprays, kitchen staples.
Yeah, for smaller infestations, these can be useful. Neem oil spray is a popular one. Mix pure neem oil with a little gentle soap and water. It disrupts insect feeding and growth and can help with some fungal issues too.
Neem oil.
Another is a garlic chili spray. Blend garlic, maybe some hot peppers, with water, strain it, add a drop of soap, acts as a repellent. Always test on a small part of the plant first and spray in the evening or on cloudy days to avoid burning leaves. Shake well.
Garlic spray. But that smells potent. Any other easy tricks for specific pests? Slugs, maybe?
Ah, slugs and snails.
Yeah.
The classic beer trap works surprisingly well. Just a shallow dish of beer sunk into the soil. They crawl in, they don't crawl out. Crushed eggshells or diatomaceous earth sprinkled around plants can create a barrier they don't like crossing to.
Beer traps and eggshells, got it. So it's not just about spraying. What about preventing pests from becoming a big problem in the first place?
Prevention is definitely the best strategy in organic gardening. Crop rotation, which we'll touch on more, helps break pest cycles in the soil.
Right.
Healthy plants are naturally more resistant, so good soil and proper watering are your first lines of defense. Using row covers, lightweight fabric over young seedlings can physically block pests like cabbage moths or flea beetles.
Row covers, okay.
And a key thing, don't overreact. A few aphids might just be food for arriving ladybugs. Resist the urge to spray immediately. Observe first. Let the natural predators work, if possible. Don't overuse even organic sprays. You can harm the good guys too.
It sounds like building that healthy, balanced ecosystem is the real goal. That study about diverse gardens having fewer pests is really encouraging.
It is. Eco-friendly gardening creates a more resilient, self-regulating system. It takes a bit more observation, maybe, but it's ultimately more sustainable.
Okay, building a healthy garden, attracting good bugs, managing the bad ones. How do we keep this going long term? Our resources talk about seasonal maintenance. Gardening isn't just a summer thing for beginners.
That's a common thought. But yeah, organic garden care is really a year-round process, just different tasks and different seasons. Thinking seasonally helps prevent problems and leads to better results long-term. That story about the failed first fall garden really drives that home.
Okay, so what are the key seasonal tasks? Let's start with crop rotation and cover crops. Nature's reset button, one source called it.
Right. Crop rotation is simply not planting the same thing or things from the same plant family in the exact same spot year after year.
Why is that important?
It helps prevent the buildup of soil-borne diseases and pests that target specific plant families. It also helps balance soil nutrients because different plants take up and sometimes add back different things. So maybe follow tomatoes with beans, then follow beans with leafy greens, for example. Don't plant tomatoes in the same spot for 3-4 years if possible.
Okay, mix it up year to year. What about cover crops? Sounded like planting something you don't harvest.
Exactly. Cover crops are grown primarily to benefit the soil. Think of them as a living mulch or green manure.
Green manure.
Yeah, you grow them during off-seasons or in fallow beds. They protect the soil from erosion by wind and rain, they suppress weeds, and when you eventually cut them down or till them in, they add valuable organic matter back to the soil.
Smart. What are some good examples for beginners?
Buckwheat is great in spring. Summer grows fast, suppresses weeds, attracts beneficials. Winter rye or oats are good fall-winter options, prevent erosion, add biomass. Legumes like crimson clover or vetch actually fix nitrogen from the air into the soil, free fertilizer.
Free fertilizer. Nice.
And if you're doing no dig, you can often just cut the cover crop down and leave the residue on the surface as mulch before planting into it.
So, crop rotation and cover crops equal long-term soil health. What about preparing for winter? Winterizing. What does that involve for a beginner?
It's mostly about protection. Applying a thick layer of mulch straw, shredded leaves around perennials or over empty beds insulates the soil, protecting roots from harsh freeze-thaw cycles.
Okay, tuck in the garden in.
Exactly. Tender plants, maybe rosemary or figs depending on your climate, might need wrapping in burlap or moving into a sheltered spot or garage if they're in pots. And you can extend your season with simple cold frames, basically a box with a clear lid maybe built from old windows and straw bales. Great for hardening off seedlings or growing hardy greens into winter.
Cold frames.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And a nice pro tip was to leave some dead stems and seed heads standing over winter. They provide habitat and food for beneficial insects and birds. Don't tidy up too much.
Good point. Support the ecosystem year-round. What about spring and summer tune-ups? Key maintenance, then.
Spring is often about gentle cleanup and preparation. Maybe some light pruning of shrubs to remove winter damage. Top dressing beds with a fresh layer of compost gives plants a good start.
Feeding them for the season ahead.
Yep. And throughout spring and summer, the main thing is staying on top of weeds. A little bit of hoeing or hand pulling regularly, especially when they're small, prevents them from taking over and competing with your crops. Much easier than tackling a jungle later.
Weekly weeding. Makes
Yeah.
sense. So, seasonal care is about consistent, small actions throughout the year, builds resilience.
Exactly. It prevents burnout for the gardener and keeps the garden ecosystem thriving. And that potential yield boost from things like crop rotation is a nice payoff.
Okay, we have covered so much ground. Understanding the garden, planning, soil, water, pests, seasonal care. To really help beginners hit the ground running, let's talk about those common organic gardening mistakes to avoid. Learning from other slip-ups is invaluable.
Absolutely. As the resources say, mistakes are often the best teachers. But knowing the common pitfalls beforehand can save beginners a lot of grief, right?
Definitely. Let's start with mistake number 1, overwatering with love. We mentioned the poor drowned zucchini earlier. Key lesson.
It really boils down to too much water is just as bad, sometimes worse than too little. It suffocates roots, invites rot and fungus.
So the fix.
Always use that finger test. Check if the soil is actually dry before watering. And consider tools like self-watering pots or even those olas if you know you tend to be heavy-handed with the hose.
Okay, mistake 2. Crowding plants, like a subway rush hour. I can totally see myself doing this, trying to fit too much in.
It's such a common temptation. But plants need their personal space to thrive for air circulation, sunlight, nutrients. Overcrowding just stunts growth and encourages diseases to spread.
The fix is pretty simple then.
Just follow the spacing guidelines on the seed packet or plant tag. They're there for a reason. And use vertical space with trellises whenever you can to grow upwards instead of outwards.
Mistake number 3, ignoring pollinators. That story about the squash flowers just falling off without making fruit really hit home.
Exactly. No pollinators, no fruit for many common crops, squash, cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, many berries. It's crucial.
So the fix is?
Plant flowers. Include flowers that attract bees, butterflies, and other pollinators throughout your garden. Native blooms are often best. And crucially, avoid spraying any pesticides, even organic ones, during peak flowering times when pollinators are active.
Good point. Protect the helpers. Mistake number 4, overdoing organic sprays. Interesting that even natural stuff can be too much.
Yeah, it's about balance. While things like neem oil or insecticidal soap are organic, they're still broad spectrum to some extent. Overusing them can harm beneficial insects just as easily as pests.
So moderation is key.
Right. Spot treat specific problems rather than spraying everything preventatively. Try the least toxic options first, like a blast of water for aphids or hand-picking pests. Rely on those natural predators you've invited.
And finally, mistake number 5, skipping soil tests. Back to the foundation.
Yes, just guessing your soil pH or nutrient levels can lead to disappointment. Remember the sulking blueberries in the wrong pH.
Right. They need acidic soil.
Exactly. Taking the time for a simple soil test, either a home kit or sending a sample to your local extension office, gives you real information. Then you can amend correctly based on what your soil actually needs. Don't just guess.
It really sounds like most of these beginner mistakes are totally preventable with a bit of planning and observation. That 90% figure seems believable.
It really is.
Yeah.
Being aware of these common pitfalls saves so much time, money, and heartache as you start your organic gardening journey.
Well, this has been an incredibly thorough deep dive into organic gardening for beginners. I feel much more equipped now. To wrap up, the resources remind us it's about progress, not perfection. I loved that image of framing the first, maybe wonky carrot as a trophy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Celebrate the journey. The key takeaways for anyone starting out. Start small, feed your soil compost, and work with nature. Attract pollinators, save rainwater, try companion planting.
So, practical next steps for inspired listeners.
Pick just one thing to start with. Maybe build a simple compost setup. Plant one pot with herbs or pollinator flowers. Set up that rain barrel. Don't try to do everything at once.
Good advice.
And connect with other gardeners. Online forums, local clubs, seed swaps. There's so much support out there.
Yeah.
And please, view any failures as learning moments, not reasons to quit.
And why keep going? What are those bigger rewards?
Oh, so many. Connecting with nature, reducing waste, getting that vitamin D, the sheer stress relief. Studies confirm the mental health benefits. Plus, you get to eat really fresh, tasty food. It's rewarding on so many levels.
A fantastic reminder. So, to all our listeners thinking about getting their hands dirty, remember, every expert gardener started right where you are. You can absolutely do this.
Happy growing.
And a quick PS, we genuinely love to hear about your first garden wins or even the funny learning bumps along the way. Share them with us on social media. Until our next deep dive, happy growing, everyone.